welcome to the Women Who Make It Happen Journeys to Success podcast with Bianca. So first and foremost, thank you so much for joining. And I suppose for the benefit of the people who are watching, it'd be good to do a couple of introductions from both sides. And then it would just be great just to understand what got you to where you are today, understand how technology has revolutionized the sort of product suite that you've done, and also the creation over the years. With the different products that you have worked on, what one would you say was the most impactful and almost kind of favoritized? And then just having moved through some different industries and also into fintech, what was the biggest change and also challenge within that? And then just to really understand about your career and the kind of key standout challenge that has happened, but also your key successes, and then just anything that you would give back to people kind of looking to get into that space, and any recommendations. So I'll quickly kick us off. So I'm Anna. I work for Interquest. So I head up our European footprint based in the Netherlands now. And that's predominantly focusing on technology-led organizations within product, data and analytics, and engineering. Over to you.
Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Bianca, currently working as a Chief Product Officer in a fintech here in Frankfurt, Germany, developing innovative payment products. Yeah.
I suppose just looking at that as well, see, that's a really big snapshot of where you are at the moment. But what everyone seems to get is, you know, what got you to where you are today? Where did you start, and kind of your journey over that period of time to get you here? So it'd be great just to go into detail a little bit around, you know, where did the career start and kind of how you got into the product space and what got you here.
Yeah, happy to go a bit into the details. So I started studying business informatics. So my background is actually a more technical one. I've been self-employed during my studies and wrote my diploma thesis at Deutsche Bank. This is actually how I got into the banking industry. So I started writing the diploma thesis. I got an offer, so I stayed as a business analyst and actually worked then 13 years for this company. So I had the opportunity to work on super different positions with different departments, international teams, local teams. I have seen a lot where I'm super thankful for. And then I guess after 9 or 10 years, I joined the Digital Factory, which was basically a digital spin-off of Deutsche Bank. So that was kind of an area to develop innovative products in a more innovative space. So I joined there back in the times as a product owner, being responsible for part of the mobile banking app, and after some years ended up as the IT chief product owner, leading the department from IT side. So it was an amazing journey. I had a lot of things that I have seen. Nevertheless, after 13 years, so I decided it's time kind of to step out to see something different, and moved into the fintech and startup space. Also, this super exciting 4 or 5 years now, seeing different companies in different stages, starting from small, innovative consultancy firms to a fintech, which was close to the exit. Then I had actually 2 years working in the educational sector. So that was kind of a short detour that it took.
I was going to say, that's completely deviating.
Yeah. But it was kind of a hard mission because of my sons and all the experience that we had during COVID. And it just kind of, so there are so many reasons why digitalization can change the educational sector so much. So I had the feeling that I need to do that. Nevertheless.
Especially through the COVID side. And I think it's, even if you look at the banking element of it, more on the traders side of it, where it actually sees how it can go digitalized or work from home, particularly education, because it's always been face to face.
Yes.
How technology got integrated into that, I could imagine, was a complete learning curve for absolutely everybody involved.
Absolutely. And so we started with a super non-digitalized school with my sons. And it was really a hassle for me, to be honest. So when I got the offer, so I thought, okay, this is kind of, even if it's not banking, that's something which is a hard mission, which I need to do. So I stayed there for 2 years. Nevertheless, I got a bit homesick for the banking sector and now moved back to a fintech, where I have now the opportunity to build a product from scratch, which is an amazing opportunity, right? Here I am back in the fintech sector.
I always feel like fintech is a push or a pull, where some people absolutely love it, because if we think about the banking side of it, Deutsche Bank is this really big, really well-known organization. But what fintechs bring is a real digitalized manner and sort of way of working, which is slightly, and I feel like innovation is a word that is really thrown around these days and sometimes brings little meaning. But for example, kind of when you're going into the fintech side of it, as you are at the moment, being able and having the capability to actually build products from the very beginning is extremely innovative, because I always say it's succeed or learn. So
Absolutely.
You're able to kind of trial and error different ways, and some people love it and some people absolutely hate it because it's not structured. And I think that's where some of the differentiations come from when you start moving into those types of sectors. And obviously from your time at Deutsche Bank, where you were involved in so many, was there any particular reason that you kind of then moved over into a fintech, which was a spin-off from Deutsche Bank? And sort of how did that kind of change the product process?
So I wrote my master thesis in parallel to my job, and it was about agile way of working. And after I wrote this master thesis, I was just keen to see how this is then going into real life. So that was kind of one of the main reasons why I changed to this digital spin-off, right? I was in. And it completely changed the way how I was working, and also just the people that were around me. It changed so much, right? So all the departments I have been before were kind of really strict, very traditional, and then coming to the digital factory, you immediately had people in short trousers, piercings.
I know.
Totally.
It's as simple as that, though, isn't it? Even just the change of, you're walking into the same environment-ish, but it's not your suits and your ties and everything else. Yeah. It's shorts, it's hair up, it's all these piercings, tattoos.
Yes, absolutely. So that was really strange, being more or less in the same environment, but having totally different people around me. Plus also there were new roles I was not used to, right? So UX, UI designer. That was something which was quite new for us, because you changed then the approach how you develop products, because it was much more customer centric as before. Of course, you need UX, UI guys on that. Before, in the traditional departments, right, there was a role which was partially kind of part of the business analysis role of the product manager. But having this new roles around me, that was really mind-blowing, to be honest.
No, I can imagine. I think even when you look at the actual product suite, you forget about the condiments, I like to say, that kind of go with it. Where you have the engineering, you have the business analysts, you have the product owners, you have the product managers, and then you also have some data people included into that to support with the development and deployment of these different types of products. But also when a product is built, the whole take to market strategy and the enablement of it. Whereas, is it web? Is it an app product? How is this actually going to be utilized and deployed? And so much of that does come down to the UX and UI guys as well, from what we're actually clicking on and what we're playing with.
Absolutely.
Kind of us as a user integration into it. And it can also make it the sort of be all and end all for how well deployed it is in the market. And when you kind of take all of those things into consideration, plus all of the different product types, it's a whole different ball game. And there's so much more to kind of take into consideration and think about. And if you're in fintech, everyone wants it deployed yesterday. And then you kind of lose that structure. So I always like to call it kind of organizational chaos. And I suppose from the products that you have worked with, where you have gone through all these different types of companies and also suites of products, where would you say the biggest use of technology has been in terms of actually evolutionizing the product process in terms of creation and as deployment as well?
Oh, that's hard to say, right? Because if you're in the fintech sector and you don't have these long processes for taking decisions, right, it's much easier to bring in new tools, to bring in new technology, to try out things. And with that also you have a totally different way how you can develop products, right? On the other way, if you're going into the corporate world, of course you have long processes to establish new tools, to new vendors, new way of working, right? What I have seen really in the fintech sector, having this customer-centric approach and all the tools and frameworks that come with it can be really a game changer. And of course, then you also have different technologies that you definitely can use to make great products, right? And as you said, you need to be fast for being on the market. So that's really essential to leverage also the potential. And I think for fintech, which is usually kind of in a more junior state of being a business, it's much more important to be fast than maybe as for a corporate, right?
Yeah, and I suppose from being fast to having it in a corporate space, how would that sort of change the product? I don't know if dynamics would be the right word, but in terms of the approach to it.
So when we were in the corporate, right, of course you need kind of to challenge a lot of existing processes.
Yeah.
And it's not that easy because you have regulation and you have also a big reputation risk, right? You need to really balance speed versus all the risks that you have.
Yeah.
And actually, so when I was in the corporate world, that was one of the biggest challenges, right? Challenging the existing processes, stick to the regulation, but also be innovative and being fast, right? And also keeping the motivation of the people high. Also, that was not easy because it can be really frustrating if you run through so many processes and you need to challenge so many things, right?
Yeah. I suppose people kind of forget the sort of cross-department collaboration that comes into it, and compliance is always a really heavy one to focus on, particularly from regulatory points and also regulatory pushbacks, but also from like a risk assessment, from like operational risk, and also, as you mentioned, kind of reputational risk as well. Yeah. And I think it's easy to forget that there's a team with this person, and quite rightly you referenced the motivational side of it when they're kind of going through all of these hurdles, which are necessary but just feel like hurdles at that time, to be able to actually deploy a product which they're being pushed for innovation but pushed back on because of regulation, and pushing because it needs to be agile, and pushed back on because the risk appetite isn't there. How would you particularly manage that sort of situation, and also just from a kind of motivational standpoint as well?
So I think it's a good approach, right? Bringing people together in a really early stage and focusing on the same goal, because at the end also people from the risk department or from compliance, also they want to collaborate and just kind of bring the best product to the market, right? I guess sometimes this is forgotten, but at the end, it's one goal. And of course, everyone has a different angle of view, and that's good because then you are strong as a team. And I believe if you bring really fast people together, you explain the goal, you understand each other's requirements, I think you can be strong as a team, and you kind of don't have this discussion in a late stage when you're close to launching a product, for example, and you're giving all the things that you do to some compliance risk legal guys and saying, oh, can you please check? And then immediately you have like big showstoppers. And I mean, this is the worst case, right? So this is why I'm saying really having regular exchanges, coming together, discussing the same, what is the goal? So that is at least something which I have seen is super helpful. And then also just makes you strong, because I mean, there is regulation to some reason, right? It's also a lot of times to protect also customers, and understanding both sides can be very mighty. It's not always easy.
Yeah, I was going to say, just saying that out loud sounds really easy, but the actual consideration of it is also not that easy. No. And I think if you look at it from more of a corporate or bigger environment to smaller, more agile companies, say that there's a real disparity between how one big, large organisation would work together and a smaller one, just because it is smaller, or is it fairly similar in terms of how that would actually work from the beginning?
So I think it depends, right? So if you're in the same sector, I guess a small company has more or less the same challenges as a corporate, right? Because also there you need to kind of to stick to some regulation, you need to stick to some processes. Nevertheless, so if you're in a smaller company, of course you have shorter decision processes. So the departments are closer to each other. You have less politics. Also, this is something which I need to say, of course. Yeah. And it's easier to establish new things, right? As I said, it's super hard to bring in new tools, for example, to the corporate world. And that's much easier if you're a small company, because you have this, as I said, short decision processes. It's easier to try out things. I mean, it's harder to fail when you fail, right? To be honest, but it's easier to try.
Yeah. No, and that's actually a really interesting point as well, because I think if we even look at, I don't know, cryptocurrency, for an example, obviously when digital assets as a product started coming into the market and also as an asset stream, all of these big sort of corporates, if we focus on like the financial service world, weren't interested in actually utilizing the product or adding it as one of its kind of services. But as that sort of evolutionized and became more prominent in the market, when one big corporate went for it, they all then follow it. And it's like a domino effect with them. It's who's going to dip their toes in the water first and who's actually going to do it, because it's experimental. It's not something which is known or straightforward, and there's some heavy processes and procedures in place already within big corporates that to actually make a change transformation takes months. Whereas if you go to more of a smaller, more nimble organization, change transformation is so much easier, because you have so much more room to fail, but also a lot more to not fail with, because there's a lot less to change almost.
Absolutely.
So I don't know how you would see sort of the change transformation when you're going through kind of a product creation area, if there's then a different focus or a different vision and mission halfway through, where you then have to look at different areas to actually build across, or how to actually make it in line with regulations that would have changed that.
So I mean, of course, right, regulation is super important, and usually what we're doing is also here again the same approach, right? Being really close to lawyers, to other people who are working with us on this topic, but on the other side, not forgetting the customer. I think that's always kind of the stretch that you have, right? On the one side, it's about protecting the customer. On the other side, processes can get super complex if you just kind of stick to everything, which is part of the regulation, right? So this is why, so what we're seeing is really working closely together, and asking the right questions, and really try to be one step ahead is what is important for us.
I think that's just what people forget sometimes, is that we all have the same end goal in mind.
Yeah.
Everyone's got the same picture here. It's just how we actually make it work, rather than trying to, I think, cut corners around people's areas is how they kind of see it sometimes. And I think within the governance space they had, and I think it's a lot more softened now, but they had this big reputation where they were just a no service. Yeah. So let's try and cut compliance out so we can do what we want. Whereas I think that's changed a lot over the last years in terms of people actually wanting to work with them now, because then they can actually do what they want to and can do. And I think one thing would be really, really interesting to kind of understand is, obviously, from going into areas where products are developed and then moving into areas where you have to develop the whole product sort of from the beginning, and kind of the different take that you would have on it as you kind of move into those new areas.
I mean, also there, right? If you move into new areas, it's really interesting to understand the market, to understand the user need, right? And to see where is really the sweet spot where you can serve with the product needs, which haven't been fulfilled yet, right? And it's always a super interesting experimentation phase, which is obviously easier if you're in a small company, right?
Yeah. And I suppose as well, just because it's something that it sounds really interesting, is obviously when you moved into the more educational piece area, the differentiations you saw from having to digitalize historically very non-digital area.
So I think COVID did. So there were a lot of negative things on COVID.
Yes, I think it's so strange to think that even happened now.
Yeah, true. And I'm happy that we forgot most of it, to be honest. But it was a huge push for the educational sector, right? And also I was surprised there is more outside than as if also I as a mom experienced, to be honest, right? There are so many innovative companies outside building really amazing products, serving teachers, students, parents. But also there is a lot of politics behind it, right? Which hurdles which need to be taken. Also there, the topic data protection is a huge one, right? To which extent do you kind of push product innovation, which is then maybe blocked by data protection agreements? So that's a very sensitive space, right? But I have seen so many innovative products really making life of teachers, students, and parents easier. And as I said, I had the honor to work 2 years on one of these products. And I'm really happy to see that there is so much progress. And it's going quite fast, even though now COVID is gone. People got used to it, and it's a commodity that you have your timetable and everything on the mobile phone. And yeah, it's amazing to see the impact also a product can make in this area, right?
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those ones, and that was going to be a question I was really interested to know, is kind of since COVID, has that been something which has continuously been adapted to, or just dropped just to kind of, it's so easy to fall back into the regular norm and kind of how it works as well. But I think through the innovation side of it, it's almost like ESG, isn't it? Where there's an actual impact behind it, and there's a lot more of a bigger picture which is integrated into creating a product for such an environment as well, because it's impacting loads of people's educations, and this could be anywhere from secondary school or higher education, universities and stuff like that, as to how much more probably accessible it is. And even for me, so I'm doing a business management degree at the moment, which is purely online and digital. So I've never been to the university ever. And that's why I was really interested to understand kind of where your product area would have been down there, because obviously before COVID, I doubt I'd be able to find a fully digital and online course, which was so accessible as well. How would you say sort of artificial intelligence has kind of impacted or created efficiencies for you as working with the product or into different areas now? And is it something which is utilized a lot or still a little bit more unknown? How would you say?
I think it's getting more and more utilized, right? So I just kind of visited a roundtable last week, which was about AI and the opportunities that you have as a company, and also how it impacts your employee satisfaction, actually. Super interesting topic. So I think it's more and more utilized, and it influences really how you develop products, but also which products you develop, right? Because you have immediately the chance to build new features, to build new capabilities if you integrate AI. So that would have been really a huge development impact if you would have done that by yourself. I would love to do that by yourself, but now you have a bunch of features which are much easier to provide to your customers, because you can integrate AI in the background, right? But also, how do we build products is strongly influenced.
Because it's like the human and the artificial intelligence kind of interaction together.
Exactly. Yeah. So we just made like a big survey. So did some customer research, and we got now the survey results. And so we're actually interested in the correlation. So did kind of this group of people, did they give this answer? And you don't get it out of the box from the survey. And so we just put it into AI and say, please analyze. And it's super interesting which additional output you can get by just kind of doing this data analytics via AI. So it's also influencing a lot how we develop products, not just which products, but also how.
And also when you talk about the how as well, when you do the analysis behind kind of these groups of people going for this, how would it kind of affect it? What are the kind of core groups that you're seeing for the AI sort of integrations?
Yeah, so I mean, it's giving us a lot of more insights, right? Because you can dig deeper into the different user groups and kind of better understand the correlation and the needs. And with this, it's much easier for us also to shape our feature landscape, because we understand the user even better, because we can bring the data together and we can, right? If you're a small company, you need to place your bet to some extent, right? You need to say, okay, this is now the hypothesis. We work on that. We believe in this approach. And if you can do this in a data-driven way, it's easier, right? Yeah.
I think it's also really, really interesting. This is just something that fascinates me, is you really do have to take the end user into consideration with any type of product creation. And I suppose it's all around kind of know your customer and stuff like that, as to how you actually look at the data behind it. And it can be as down to, okay, well, I don't know, Anna's done this many clicks onto our website through this lead generation. So how are you then looking at building the product to make that more accessible, or kind of leveraging the information that you've got online? And would that then be kind of what you would use to develop the features into your product? Or if you was to look at it from a different route, is there anything kind of interesting that you would funnel down yourself, or kind of have been a part of previously, which is sort of added? And I suppose that would be a key part to say the innovation side of it, which has really sort of stood out for you in terms of the actual product development areas.
So for us, right, it's really interesting, as I said, to understand the customer better, to understand the needs better, kind of. So also then to shape the features in a way that will serve the needs, right? So because it can be totally different depending on whom are you serving, right? What are the needs? So how do you formulate your wording if you provide the product, right? So for us, it's really important so that we can take the feature decisions based on data. And there are so many examples where, just as we're building up this product from scratch, where we needed to take so many decisions, right? It starts with so what is our wording focus? To which feature do we develop? How do we go to the market? So we can say, okay, all these decisions that we need to take, it's easier if we have the data behind.
And I think that's what most companies are leading to now, is how do we do more data generated decisions rather than let's hold 10 meetings, let's look 10 people in the eye and shake 5 people's hands before we kind of get the go ahead. And I think it takes an element of trust in the data that you're able to generate to formulate the decisions. And it could be for long or short term company goals and strategic objectives as to how that's actually used. And with the data that you kind of make the decisions with, is being able to actually pull the trigger and have some belief behind it as well, which I think takes quite a lot of a change in mentality from, you know, more of a corporate organization to a fintech, where it is so data led and driven for the decision making process.
Yeah, especially if the data is contradicting to your gut feeling.
Yes. Oh, what would you even do in that situation where your gut is telling you no and the data is telling you yes? How would you actually navigate that?
Oh, that's a super tough question, to be honest. And I think there is no black or white answer to that, right? So I think it's depending really on where does your gut feeling come from. And on the other side, how much can you trust the data, right? Because not the data quality is not on all sides always perfect, right? And I think also there you need to be sure how much can you trust the data, or is it really bulletproof, or is it just an indication because you maybe haven't collected enough data yet, or you're missing some data points in it, right? Yeah, but I think that's a super interesting one. What happens gut feeling versus data?
Yeah.
That's not
I
that
suppose
easy.
then you just go back to the root cause of what's our data governance structure.
Exactly.
And kind of how is it focused, and how do we actually linear the data down to, and analyzing into the data lake to actually generate it through the product.
Yeah.
And it must be quite an intense decision when you have to go against your gut feeling with the data to see if it generates the right outcome.
Yeah, but there you need to be open, right? Also there it's about build, measure, learn, to be honest. It's really kind of being clear on what is the experiment, what is the thing that you're now trying out, and just measure it and learn from it. And sometimes it's the gut feeling which was right, and sometimes
I think that's what success, though, is the experimental side of it, and people actually being open and cautious enough to be actually quite very open to the actual experimentational side of it, and just saying, okay, well, this is your gut feeling, but you're just gonna have to give it a go.
Exactly.
It is, I can see that would be a really hard decision to make, because it kind of goes against all of your own sort of beliefs and feelings in terms of what a robotic says. And I went to a roundtable myself the other day, which is all about the kind of AI Act, and that kind of deep dived into gut feelings and belief in terms of robotic algorithms, and how much you kind of need to look at the trustworthiness of it, and actually belief in what's actually come out of your own governance structures and your own sort of data areas, to believe in the product that you're going to be deploying. And I think that just comes into so many different perspectives with everyone that you speak to, because some people will still go against the gut feeling, or kind of lose sight of what they're trying to achieve and manually pick through all of the data again to understand the decisioning, which completely comes away from what the objective is in total. And I think that's where the slight little bump comes in, because people are just not ready to take that type of jump just yet.
No. Yeah, you need to be very kind of. So it's not easy. I guess we need some more years, right, in order also to get more mature dealing with this topic.
Yeah. And I suppose as well, it'd be quite interesting just to understand where you have been involved in so much and had quite a lot of exposure to different kind of automations and product suites and deployments through different industries, kind of where your biggest challenge was in your career.
Okay. So the biggest challenge, so I think actually it's independent from industry, and it's independent from product. It's more
personal.
It is actually, when I think about it, it is personal. And I think it's always when you come into a situation where you have different responsibilities, right? And it comes together. Usually these are the positions which are exciting because you're seeing a lot, but it also can be very exhausting. And so I learned that on my way, right? Even though you have the different responsibilities, you have a lot of different duties, still you need to kind of focus on delegation. You need to focus on hiring the right people so that you build up the team, that you can share or kind of split the responsibilities across more people, right? So I think that is kind of the biggest challenge that I have faced, and I would say face still from time to time, independent of industry or product.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important one to do, is, you can't do it all. And it is actually important to look, professional career growth, we all really enjoy. And it's something which some people focus on, but then you also need to remember there is a person there, and you do kind of want your personal life to be able to be happy and progressive. And it is a challenge when you do know how to do everything and you do like to do everything, delegation becomes a really big problem for people.
Yeah.
And then it brings it down to hiring the right person, because as soon as you've been burnt once, you really struggle to make the decision on who you want in your team and the type of individual you think, and that was what we thought before, will actually work. And I think that brings a real nichety to people's development and kind of well-being as they kind of bypass through both personal and professional life throughout their time.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I suppose that can kind of loop back in as well with the kind of standout success that you've had. And everyone always really struggles with this one, because we're all so good at picking out our challenges. When it comes to successes, we all think,
yeah, no, that's that's true. So for me, it's really kind of being where I am today. So that's kind of, I would say, the biggest success. Because I had so many people I met on this journey, so many talents I worked with, also who gave me a lot of knowledge and kind of opened up how I'm seeing also the business world. That this, I would say, was kind of the biggest success that I have, right? So just accompany also people, having people in the team work together. It's just kind of, I'm thankful for that. Also still, right, I am in contact with people who were in my team in former companies. And so if I'm meeting these people, we still can have a chat. So I kind of take that as a success, I would say.
You know, I absolutely love that. I love that. And I think it's actually a really good one to highlight, is success isn't driven by how tall up the tree you get or how high of a position or how high you're paid, but if you're able to sit there and say, look at everyone I've been able to learn a little bit of something off along the way, who has added additional expertise or additional fun in the office and contributed to something which I've been really proud of, I think that's a really, really good success point. And that's kind of encompassing other people's successes into your own success as well, because you've all been able to learn a little bit of something from each other that you didn't know before, which is growing in your skill set as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And one, just to kind of start winding this down, one question I love to ask, and it's one that I always really like the answer to because it's different every time. If you could say something to your younger self as you're starting to move into this industry that you know now that you wish you knew then, what would it be?
I think one is kind of the logical sequence to what you asked before is believe in yourself. Right. So as it's hard for us to talk about successes, also, I think we're all kind of having a lot of self-doubt. So just believing in yourself, right? It's important to reflect yourself, but just believe in you. So that would be the first. And the second one is actually take ownership. So I think that's a bit kind of a mindset thing. It's not that always that easy, depending on which situation you are in. But I believe that if you take ownership, and it can be just kind of in a small piece, you can change things and you can go into the way you want to go and you can grow, but you need to get yourself into the driver's seat and take ownership. And I've not always been there. So, right. So if you struggle sometimes, you fall into self-doubt, you kind of complaining, whatever, but I truly believe take ownership and you will grow. So that would be something which I would say to my younger self, I guess.
You know, I really like that. And I think both of those interlink so nicely together, because if you believe in yourself, you're more likely to take ownership. And by taking ownership, it does bring a sense you really need to believe in yourself. But then it also goes into your other point of you need to be willing and want to use other people's mindsets and talent to be able to see the end goal and kind of contribute to the route that you are on. And I think sometimes it's very easy to fall into a mindset of self-doubt and extremely hard to get out of that mindset.
Yeah.
So just by, just stop for a second, just kind of go away, take a walk, grab a coffee, do whatever you need to do, and kind of just, I think my manager always says, give your head a wobble.
Okay. Look, I always
back
say
on your shoulders,
breathe.
Anna.
So I always say, okay, breathe.
Just take a sec.
Pause. Exactly.
Oh, well, look, it's been really, really interesting going through your journey. And I find it fascinating in terms of data analytics and also product deployment, and how you actually get this from user clicks and the differentiations of products and how people actually view them. Because I think it's a lot more technicalities and a lot more cross-border kind of collaboration that contributes to the success of this. So thank you so much for joining. I think it'll be really, really interesting for people to see this and also kind of understand a little bit more your journey. And it's been great finding it out firsthand.
Thank you so much for having me. And really happy that people like you hosting these formats. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.